Hey, this is Doc Yates. I'm a naturopathic doctor, registered acupuncturist, and a kinesiologist, owner of the Yates Naturopathic Clinic, and the founder of the interactive health website, Able Health. And this is the Simply Health Podcast, a show for females where I work to simplify and demystify the secrets of achieving optimal health naturally, based on my own experience in working with thousands of female patients over the past 15 years of my clinical practice. Welcome to Simply Health. Hey, this is Doc Yates here, and today I want to go over the five kind of strategies of natural medicine that you want to consider to optimize your health. And typically what you find in a lot of mainstream medicine is that they don't really do a lot of work with diet and natural remedies, and they're a lot more apt to give prescriptions and what they would call is follow the science. But what I found and what the studies show is actually that 1 in 5, that's 1 in 5 prescriptions that are typically given are off-label. And what that means is that there's no actual science behind them. They're using them for additional side effects, and they're using those side effects as treatment. And actually even worse, when they look in the elderly, 75%. So the vast majority of the prescriptions that they're given and that they're using are off-label prescriptions, which means that there are no studies and they're not used for that purpose to back that up. So in terms of working to use natural methods to optimize your health, these are things that I've been using and learning over the last 15 years of practice, working with patients. And part of that practice, I was actually working in a walk-in medical clinic. So I was the naturopathic doctor there was pediatricians, there was GPs, and the days that I were in were also the same days that the drug reps would come in and they would be talking about these off-label prescriptions. And the one that really stood out to me, because honestly just made me quite upset, was that there are medications that are called PPIs, and these are the ones that are typically prescribed for heartburn. A lot of patients with heartburn will take these medications and it stops your production or dramatically reduces your production of stomach acid. In doing that, because you're not digesting, one of the common side effects is loose stool or diarrhea. And the drug reps were coming in and telling the practitioners that for babies with constipation, these medications were a great prescription because the side effect was loose stool and diarrhea, which means that it was fixing their constipation. These are medications that in adults are shown to lead to problematics. They're not supposed to be used long term. They're typically supposed to be a 2-week prescription, and they were prescribing them for babies. And I remember all the GPs being like, "Oh yes, this is excellent. I love this." And I was just standing there almost in horror, being like, "Oh my goodness, you cannot do this to a child," because that's also part of their immune system. That acid, when bacteria and things are coming in, that acid is part of one of the first stages of the immune system to help get rid of problematic bacteria as well. So I, again, as a naturopathic doctor, put a lot more change, and we like to focus on how do we treat things from a natural standpoint. And these strategies that I want to go over are also ways that you can kind of identify a good naturopathic strategy for optimizing your health. So the first of the 5 simple things you want to consider is that a good naturopathic plan usually involves change, not just substitution. And what I mean by that is that I often call it health food store syndrome. And where you go into a health food store and you're like, "I have this," and then like, "Oh, therefore you, instead of taking this medication, you take this supplement." And I have pain. Okay, instead of this pain medication, you take this supplement. And that's just substituting natural remedies for prescriptions. And while that works well in many of the cases, it doesn't really work well for the second point that we have to go over, is finding the root cause. So if you're just substituting and not finding the root cause, in that case, you're just substituting. You're using a Band-Aid approach. So instead of using a prescription Band-Aid, you're using a natural Band-Aid, but you have to go deeper, which is point number 2, finding the root cause. To kind of go over this, there's kind of a classic naturopathic example that we use, and it's called the oil light story. So imagine taking your car to the garage, the oil light comes on, you take it in because you have not mechanically inclined at all, And the mechanic's looking around, and you're like, well, the oil light's on, what are you going to do? And he's like, oh, that's easy. And he just opens up the dash and removes the bulb for the oil light. And he's like, perfect, now it's not on. And that is the example of how most prescriptions work. They are treating that symptom, in this case, the light being on, without treating the root cause, which in this story would be the lack of oil. Or why are you losing oil in the first place? So you have to do the extra work to make sure that whoever you're working with is working to find the root cause. The other thing that I want to consider for point number 3 is that it's not supposed to be, I know this is common, but it is not us versus them. It's using things in conjunction. So doesn't mean that you can never use prescriptions. It doesn't mean that surgery is not indicated. All of those things have indications. But the way I see treatments is that you always want to pick the treatment that will give you the best possible outcome with the least side effects. And timing plays a role with this. Say someone going through severe panic attacks, yeah, absolutely. Start them with medications, and then you can work to find the root cause and then help wean them off the medications as you work with it naturally. But often it makes sense to start with a stronger treatment. But again, not always. A lot of the times, it actually makes more sense to take a little bit of time to find the root cause first, and then you can use a treatment that's more indicated with less side effects. And honestly, the majority of the time, that turns out to be more of a natural treatment because the side effect profiles for treating naturally is just so much lower. Point number 4, I would say, is that you always want to consider a bit of a multifaceted approach, because when you're finding the root cause, a lot of the times it's not just one thing. So you want to consider the physiological part of it, the structural aspect of things, the psychological part of it. I'll give 2 stories here. So I had a patient who had pretty bad digestive issues, and we figured out their diet, we used a few supplements, and their digestive issues all went away. And then something happened in their life that put them back into a relatively higher levels of stress, and then all of their digestive issues all came back, despite the fact that their diet was now, ideal for them. The supplements to improve their digestion was ideal for them, but the stress set it off. So you can see that it's the multifaceted, commonly a 3-pronged approach. And once we corrected and helped them deal with the stress, all their digestion issues went away again. Another really good example would be, let's use for an example, osteoarthritis of the knee. So say someone's got arthritis in their knee. In dealing with these aspects, you'd want to consider the structural part of it. Like, is there something wrong with the way they're walking? Is there an alignment issue in their hips that's causing issues in their knee? These are all things that you want to consider. And then there's also, is there inflammation? Is there inflammation related to diet? Is it something that they're eating? Is it something that they're using? And then lastly, what can we do to actually support the joint and the cartilage? And that's where you see those classic remedies that people typically start with. Things like glucosamine, chondroitin, natural anti-inflammatories. So rather than just jumping right to that, make sure whoever you're working with, or when you're working to improve your own health, that you're considering these different aspects for each condition. And then finally, point number 5, once you figure this stuff out, the goal is to then, how do you make this treatment as easy as possible? That's a big part of my practice, is trying to simplify things, trying to take the complex once you've figured everything out, and how do you simplify it? Because if it's not simple, no one's going to do it. If it's really difficult, unless the person has severe symptoms, it's very difficult for them to find the motivation to do it. And even if it was myself, if I was in severe pain, I would do it. But if it was just mild and you want me to do 50 things and take 20 supplements to maintain it, that's not reasonable. So point number 5 is choose the simplest approach for maintenance. So sometimes that means a few dietary changes, figuring out the right exercises, and done. So a lot of people's concerns when it comes to natural treatments is cost. And that kind of depends on who you're working with as well, because naturopathic medicine and natural treatments have the ability to be extremely affordable. Like, when all things are said and done, It could be a few diet tweaks. Instead of expensive supplements, you could even be using just some herbal teas. And then from the exercise standpoint, maybe it just means going from being, sitting on the couch to taking some more walks and doing some more activity. And if you compare that with the cost of not really doing anything and then having everything get worse, that to me, the trade-off seems very straightforward and very obvious, that you want to make sure that there's the cost of the benefit. So the benefits that you're getting will outweigh the cost of the actual monetary cost. So money is just is something that you exchange for something that you want more than money. And in this case, it's health. And it doesn't have to be that expensive. So just to review everything, you want to make sure that you're actually involving change typically in your lifestyle, not just substituting for natural products. Do a little bit of work to find the root cause. Again, it's not us versus them. It's finding the best possible treatment, the least side effects. Make sure you're considering the multifaceted approach, the different aspects that can be leading to this. And then keep it simple. Always try and keep things simple, because that is what's going to lead to long-term change, which is almost always necessary for long-term benefit. All right, so this is Doc Yates signing off. Thanks for tuning in to Simply Health. If you want to learn more about health, check out Able Health. If you want to see some of the other projects that I've been working on in health, business, music, and life, please check out the links below.